Hi, and welcome to day 13 of the 21-day self-transformation challenge, Finding Purpose. This week we've been kind of tearing things down, looking at our core wounds, looking at processing, and then moving into non-judgment and self-love. And this is by design and for a reason, because we get today to work with, now we're in a space of finding our own inner truths, our own true north, our compass. It's our sort of inner orientation towards life. And these are the things, if we follow our inner orientation, these are the things that lead to our happiness and to our joy. And so it's all tied in with the true desires, the desires of the soul, and the purpose, the gifting, the inner gifting. Because when you tie all these elements together, you find your purpose and you find your way of expressing your purpose. And so inner truth and understanding and realizing what is your inner truth does take this process of tearing down the programming, understanding and processing the core wounds, and then being able to be in this space of acceptance, because sometimes, many times, your inner truths don't match what society is telling you that your inner truth or your truth and your path to happiness should look like. So awareness is really a big factor in being in touch with your inner truth. And as I said, that the inner truth, the deepest core desires, and the purpose, the expression of the gifts are really all so integrated. You can't separate them. And just to give a few examples of differences of inner truth, I know when I was younger, it took me a lot of years, let me just put it that way, to understand that not everybody thinks like I do. Not everybody behaves like I do. And, not that they're wrong and I'm right, just that they have a different core orientation than I have. So in a conversation or a situation, when you have an expectation that something's going to get done or someone's going to do something a certain way because that's the way you would do it, then you end up getting hurt. Or vice versa, you end up hurting them because they had an expectation that something was going to be done, because your core truth, your core orientation is different. It took me, like I said, a lot of years to understand that people don't work like I do and they don't think like I do. And then it took me a little bit longer to not make myself wrong or not make them wrong, and just come into this space of being aware of how I work and how I think, and being aware of how others might take that or misinterpret it or take advantage of it or be hurt by it. So it's important when I function to understand how I am, to understand what my true orientation is, and be able to explain that to people, kind of up front. Another example of inner truth is, there would be a couple. One would be the career path, which I've already talked about in a previous video. When you grow up, you go to college, you get a job, you think that you're finding your happiness, and you think that the truth is this is the path you're supposed to be following, when in reality what's true for you and your happiness and your joy comes from a completely different path. Another great example is take marriage, for example. I've been married twice and divorced twice, and for me, I don't really see how I could have ever been with one person for 50 or 60 years. It's just not true for me. And society makes that wrong. But the reality is there's a lot of people out there that are like me. And so there is no right or wrong in this. It just is what it is. It is, an aspect of what's true for me. So these are just two sort of personal examples, I guess, or, one isn't really a personal example, but anyway, examples of how your inner truth may not look like what society says it should look like. and how we may be programmed or conditioned, or again have some wounding around what is true for us. So it takes this awareness, self-awareness, to clear out the crap and really get into what is true for me, what truly is going to make me happy in a given situation, or is going to bring me joy, or is going to bring me expansiveness. And you know you're not in the path, you're not not on a core truth or in a core truth when you find something that's shutting you down, constricting you, limiting you. And so it's a good way to understand what is not true for you. And then it's again about stepping out of judgment. It's just being in awareness, being in acceptance that your truth may differ from someone else's truth and theirs may differ from yours, and that's okay. And then understanding and following or not following, not stepping into what isn't true for you, but stepping into what is true for you, and having, it can take courage. Following inner truth can take courage, because it may look like stepping out of what society says is the right and best way to do it. It's the only way to get to heaven, is, following this truth. And never mind what's true for you. I know there's a lot of people out there, that more and more and more that are now having the courage to step out and live what's true for them. And it does take some experimenting, some trials and fails, and you don't just get there a lot of times, and that's because it's the process of life. That's part of the fun of it. Life is about the journey, not the destination, is what they say. So it's digging into, and by experimenting, finding out what's true for you, what lights you up, what makes you happy, and bringing that into your awareness, and being willing to kind of look at that, follow that, and write that down. So, as we go through this process, the looking at the wounding, working on the self-love, using our journal and taking notes, and just being in inner awareness, when you get on something that is true for you, you might want to jot it down. And I do feel like the core orientation probably is always there, but your inner truths can change, and what you feel at one point in time is your inner truth, or if you achieve a certain level of mastery of that truth, if that makes any sense, if it's something that's growth oriented, or then it can evolve, it changes, it grows, it expands, it never stops. And that's the beauty. There's nothing stagnant in inner truth to me. Nothing's ever set in stone. There's always shifting, changing, and growing. And I do believe that there's a certain element of core of orientation north, but I remain open to the possibility that it could all change at any time. So that's an important kind of big piece, and I'm hoping that I covered it really sufficiently for you, because it really flows right in from the self-acceptance. Because like I said, once you can get to the self-love place, it's much, much easier to be in awareness of yourself. This is how I am, and this is what's true for me. And then you're in a much greater place to be willing to just live that truth and be authentic in that. And that's a beautiful and very empowered place to be.